As we come to the close of another week, our Saturday evening service, it means the conclusion of the first week of our convention time. And it is certainly a wonderful joy to have all of you here to share these hours together. And tonight, I would like to have this hour of meditation take particular note of the pattern of our considerations and meditations in the outworking of this convention and review period for the class and an opportunity for the servers in the field to share something of what we have been considering in the class work during this school term. In opening our meditation tonight, let us have a moment of devotion. Our gracious and loving King, Lord of heaven and earth, we thank Thee for the privilege of sharing in the spirit of Thy presence here tonight, that in this hour we may more fully come to realize the pattern of our function in service to Thee on earth. That Thy kingdom on earth may be a reality to the children of men, and that the accomplishment of that which is in accordance with Thy will may bring forth on earth that which is in heaven. For Thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever in the Christ. Amen. In the review program, as it came to a close this afternoon for this week, the subject of the Shekinah pattern of being had been introduced. We will be sharing much more meditation in this particular field. But in this consideration of the basic theme, I would like to draw to your attention tonight a point which has to do with the manifestation of many of the blessings which the world has known, so that we may consider the reason why those blessings appear, something of what is at work, and consequently be more effective in our own ministry. We have all heard many stories about various shrines. The shrine where one may more or less anticipate some form of healing of body or mind, or those shrines where one goes to find a particularized awareness of a spiritual experience. In the Mohammedan world, for instance, Mecca provides a basic shrine for many millions of people on the face of the earth. And we find these shrines present in many parts of the world. We all have heard about one in France, which is under the auspices of the Roman Catholic Church, where there have been many healings. Various patterns, which we will not undertake to outline in an historical sense tonight, but a recognition of the principle of the shrine. As we recall the pattern in relationship to the story of Abraham, for instance, we recall that in many places where he stopped, he built an altar unto the Lord. And when he was returning out of Egypt after the famine, he went to a place where he had previously built an altar unto the Lord. An altar, a temple, a shrine of some sort, has down through the millennia provided a consciousness of a centering in relationship to spiritual experience. The question that arises first in our minds is, why is it that at some particular shrine something of this nature tends to develop? What is happening? How does it happen? And why? In the introduction to the consideration of the Shekinah pattern of being, we took note of the fact that the Spirit of God comes to a point of meeting in relationship to something in the outer physical realm. The cloud of glory, as it is seen, is the body of the Shekinah, which we have spoken of as being the essence of undifferentiated truth. As a background to this approach to a consideration of Shekinah, we gave attention to magic, the principles of magic, both white and black. The use of the word white in relationship to magic is very often misleading. There are many philosophies or schools of thought in the world which claim to be dealing on the basis of white magic or teaching the principles of white magic. But when we begin to check into them, we find that they are all dealing with black magic, even though they call it white magic. So, we want to be careful from the standpoint of terminology, because if we say white magic, some person who has had contact with some of the schools in the world that assumes to teach something about white magic may assume that we're talking about the same thing when we are not. And this pattern of false translation of idea is something which we must very carefully watch. However, in this consideration of magic, we recognized that in black magic there is the use of the principle of the shrine or the altar, a place of centering also. And we recognize the black magic triangle. Now, if we remember the principles which we have also studied with respect to pneumoplasm, and recognize that the spirit as such is something that is absolutely and forever invisible to the human eye, to the physical eye of man as he is so constituted. And then remember something with respect to the emanations or radiations which have been noted with respect to the body, how they extend further out from the body when there is a normal condition of health, how they withdraw into the body, and how there are the facts of various colorations. We can begin to put together some of the basic factors which are essential to our meditation this evening. Remember the point: the Spirit of God cannot be seen in its true or pure form. The human eye never sees the Spirit of God. We can see the results of the Spirit of God. We can see the forms through which the Spirit of God operates. But we cannot, with physical vision, see the Spirit of God. And until the pneumoplasm begins to provide a body for spirit, spirit cannot have any meaning in relationship to this world. Spirit as such does not have any relationship to this world, to any physical thing, human, animal, vegetable, or anything else, except through pneumoplasm. When we begin to think about the manifestation of the power of God on earth, we recognize that there must be some means by which that power can manifest in relationship to this realm. And yet we know that millions of human beings, having something of the idea that the power of God is a reality and it should be able to have meaning in relationship to human beings, have assumed that somehow there is just a contact, a connection that may be made somehow that will let spirit have direct meaning in relationship to the human body or the mind or the heart. But in our studies, meditation, we have seen that such is not the case. And we have also recognized that we, as human beings, have the responsibility of generating the pneumoplasm that is to be used. God doesn't generate the pneumoplasm from an inner plane standpoint. We can depend upon God to provide the ever-flowing current of His Spirit. But that Spirit as such has no meaning on earth until we ourselves provide the connecting link. So, the only begotten Son of God is issuing forth from God all the time. And in this connection, let us be certain to remember that God is to the realm of God being exactly the same as mankind is to the realm of human being. As mankind includes all human beings, God includes all God beings. And while there are focalizations, particularized, with respect to God being, and such focalizations may, for instance, in relationship to the Lord of Lords and King of Kings, be spoken of as God. When we say God, we have reference to the realm of God being, which includes all God beings. And when we say mankind, we do not refer just to one human being or one group of human beings. We have reference to all human beings. So mankind is to humanity, or to human beings, as God is to the realm of God being. And from God, that is, from the realm of God beings, in which all God beings share, an individual and a collective pattern, we have the manifestation on that level of the Spirit of God issuing forth from all God's beings. And this Spirit of God is the only begotten Son of God, which is to say, it is that which issues forth from God eternally. Now, this only begotten Son of God can have no meaning on earth whatsoever, except as we permit it, except as we cooperate. And man has not learned how to cooperate, which is to say, man has not learned how to live. We look into the world pattern, and regardless of all the religions on earth, and all the philosophies, and all the beliefs, we have human beings in a miserable condition, suffering all kinds of diseases and difficulties, chaos, a lack of peace, a pattern of decay, subject to death. Man, then, has not learned the art of living, and all the various philosophies have failed to give man an understanding of the art of living. So, we are interested in finding this contact of learning how to function in relationship to it, and learning how to live. The magic of life, or the magic of living. One other point we must bring to focus out of our past meditation, and that is the point of balance. How it is that the positive aspects of a given formation, such as the solar system, provide a pattern of energy or a creative field in which the negative aspects find a point of balance. And that point of balance establishes, for instance, the orbit of this earth. The sun has a gravitational pull which is felt by all of its planets, including this earth. But there is also the centrifugal force which tends to throw the planets out from the sun. There are other energies involved, but we won't take time to study them at the moment. The important thing is that two forces or energies are counteracting each other. And the point where they come to balance, where they neutralize each other, establishes the orbit of the earth. From the standpoint of anything that is to have stability, we need the same pattern of principle. There must be the positive centering, there must be the negative response. Remember that when I use the word negative, I do not mean destructive. If I mean destructive, I will say it. Negative things are constructive, and we must use negative things. Negative, then, means responsive. Responsive, yielded to a given positive. And the point where negative response and positive radiation neutralize each other establishes a place or a placing of form in relationship according to the divine design. This point of balance must be seen if we are going to begin to understand the principles that begin to work in relationship to that which is an altar unto the Lord, a shrine, or a temple that becomes a shrine, etc. There is no gainsaying the fact that many remarkable things have happened in relationship to shrines in all parts of the world, under all religions. It is not limited to the so-called Christian religions at all. It is not limited to the Mohammedan religion. It's not limited to any of them. We go back in history or check all of the different patterns of belief on the face of the earth, and wherever there is a shrine, whether in the field of so-called white magic or so-called black magic, remarkable things have happened. Interesting things. A manifestation of phenomena which carries conviction to human minds, establishes belief, faith, and consequently cooperative action. Anyone who understands even a little of the principles involved can establish a black pattern of magic, give it an appearance of white magic, make it seem to be based in God's love, emphasize God's love, establish a shrine, and develop phenomena. And when the individual comes in contact with this given phenomenon, it tends to make those who see believe that here is something special, something that gives evidence of the reality of God. Actually, it does in one sense, because all energy does come from God. All life forces come from God, whether they're used according to God's will, plan, and purpose or not. But most of these human activities utilize a process of stealing life energies to produce a given result. However, we are particularly interested tonight in seeing something of how this works in relationship to heavenly magic, the divine pattern of magic. First, an altar. A place, any place. It can be of rock of peculiar formation. It can be almost anything. It can be a tree, a selected tree that has a certain definite appeal to a number of human beings, where there's a pattern of focalization. It can be virtually any spot on the face of the earth. And in one sense, we might say that here on Sunrise Ranch, we are in the process of developing a shrine. So it can be here. But if we understand the principles involved, we should be able to function more effectively in relationship to the development of that shrine and the possibilities of greater blessings by reason of the shrine. First, we have considered the development of pneumoplasm. And in our meditations, to bring in another point which is essential, we have recognized the principle of the hedge about the individual, about his house, and about all that he hath on every side. This hedge, in its original or first or primary manifestations, has within it the reality of the Spirit of God, but depends upon the generation of pneumoplasm and the coordinated relationship of that which is humanly generated with that which issues forth from God. We have noted that the moment any resentment patterns, any rebellious patterns, any self-centered patterns of any sort, egotism or false belief of any kind, distorts the vibrational field to the extent that there is no true meeting between that which is generated by the human beings involved and that which is issuing forth from God. Anything that disturbs that point of meeting, that point of beginning of the blending, at the point of union between heaven and earth, will disrupt and spoil the result. In the pattern of the world generally, where human beings have not carried forward to being pure of heart, where they haven't understood what was happening, the basic result has been achieved by classifying the place as sacred. And the individual, the faithful of that particular pattern of belief, wouldn't think of going there and displaying anything that would violate that sacredness. He may have it inside of himself, but generally speaking, there's a period of preparation of some sort before visiting a shrine. Perhaps some fasting, perhaps some praying, perhaps something else. But the important thing is that within the scope of the individual consciousness and degree of the purity of heart, there is an acceptance of the idea that that place is sacred. And the faithful individual of that philosophy or religion would not, under any circumstance, willingly or knowingly desecrate that which is held to be sacred. Consequently, by this means, as much as is humanly possible in the self-active range has been eliminated from the vibrational field immediately surrounding the shrine. And the more conscientious everyone is in relationship to the idea of keeping the shrine sacred and of having proper preparation in relationship to it, the more the vibratory pattern is allowed to remain undisturbed. It has a very definite ceiling. It doesn't go as high as it could or should, but it is held sacred, and there is a sense of holiness, or of that which is hallowed at that point. Therefore, the individual who comes to that point is giving the best of his or her response. Whatever its limitations may be, there is the willingness to keep the vibratory pattern at the shrine sacred and undisturbed, and at that point the individual gives the best that he knows how to give in response. Consequently, a current of power begins to generate, and the shrine, if it's a rock of peculiar formation, say, or whatever it may be, the shrine becomes the symbol in the consciousness of the individuals involved, so that whenever they think of the shrine, they see or image that particular thing. It centers there in their thought and in their feeling, even though they may be far away. So regardless of where they are, all of these individuals who have accepted the one shrine see one thing. They think of one thing. They have a mutuality of dedication that it shall be kept sacred, that it is holy, and that it is a point to which they respond for some reason. And they see in the mind's eye and in the feeling patterns of the heart the same thing, the same basic symbol. Therefore, whether they are present in person or far away, there is a centering of vibrational factors at that point. Now, the Spirit of God is issuing forth constantly. The only begotten Son of God is constantly being born, flowing like a fountain. And when we consider the fact that God sends, as the Master pointed out, his rain on the just and on the unjust, we begin to see that nowhere on the face of the earth, without respect to persons or anything else, is there a place, a point, a person where God withholds his Spirit. God's Spirit is issuing forth so that it is absolutely everywhere. But we look at the world and we see that the world is not in contact with that Spirit, and that even in the cases of shrines and temples or cathedrals or what have you, whatever contact there is far less than that which ought to be. A little manifestation of power here or there, something that occasionally appears, and it's enough to make people keep thinking, well, maybe something will happen for me. It keeps the individual centered. But it does not provide the manifestation of the essential power. We look into the world and we see that nowhere, with respect to any church, any philosophy, any teaching, anywhere that we may see out there in the world, that power has not been made manifest. Why? There are many reasons, but there has been a failure to recognize the basic principles of man's relationship to God. In our case, then, we are interested in letting the mind be filled with the truth, a recognition of the reality of the divine design and divine control. We are interested in true centering in God's love and true dedication to the reality of life, the Trinity of the Spirit, or the Trinity of the Shekinah pattern of being. Next, we recognize that the uses of the power must be according to God's will, not according to personalized human desires, but according to God's will. Now, human beings going to these shrines imagine, according to their various philosophies, that they're perfectly willing that God's will be done. Some of them take the attitude, if it's God's will, I will be healed. If not, I won't, just to illustrate. And the individuals going there tend to have their personalized pattern of desire, the thing they want, the thing they are longing for. And as a consequence, whatever power is actually generated is kept scattered. Instead of letting it be centered to the point where there can be a true manifestation of power that will be effective in relationship to the world as a whole, and through the changing the world pattern, begin to alleviate and finally to correct the situation with the individual. The individuals, as such, are so hungry, so thirsty, so desirous, that they keep making their own little contacts for their own little purposes, dissipating whatever is developed. Now, if we are going to have anything different from that which is to be found in these various places in the world, we must reach a point where these personal desires, as such, have no meaning. We must reach a point where we recognize the reality of the divine formula. The Lord is your shepherd, you shall not want. To stop wanting, not to even want healing, not to want anything. For anyone who goes to a shrine wanting something and hoping to get something, trusting it will be God's will, that he as an individual will receive it, is actually desecrating the shrine, although he doesn't know it. And most of those who have charge of such shrines in the world don't know it, because they don't understand the principles that are at work. But here, we begin to see that God's will is not something that functions from the standpoint of the individual on a basis of, is it God's will that so-and-so should get well or should not get well? In an overall sense, we recognize that it is God's will that all people should be well. But we also recognize that human beings must relinquish their self-active patterns, their self-centeredness, before they can be truly, effectively, or permanently healed. Even if they receive a little healing, they will reproduce some ill condition because they assume that they know something which they do not know. They assume that they're living a spiritual life when they are not. So, here, we cease having a personalized desire. And we must encourage human beings to reach a point where they do not want healing, no matter how much they may need to be healed. Sometimes human beings get confused on that point. They assume that if it's God's will that all people should be healed, then it's perfectly all right for them to want to be healed, and therefore they start trying to get healing, assuming that it's within the pattern of the teaching, which it is not. It is not all right for anyone to want to be healed. Because if you want to be healed and you say, well, but I did recognize that it's God's will that I should be healed. He's willing that everyone should be healed, so that includes me. Why shouldn't I want to be healed? Because the very attitude of wanting to be healed separates you from your healing. It personalizes the vibrational field in relationship to yourself without regard to the whole. Our consideration must be with respect to the whole. And if we forget the vital importance of the whole and say, well, even at the cost of the outworking for the whole, I would like to have something for myself, you prevent the fulfillment of the whole, which is absolutely essential to your fulfillment. You cannot have a true, lasting, or real fulfillment without regard to the whole. As an individual human being, it is utterly and absolutely impossible for you to have a real fulfillment. It's impossible for you to truly serve or really accomplish anything worthwhile in life. Your fulfillment as an individual depends upon the whole, and at the same time, your progress as an individual helps, if it is worked out properly, helps to bring about the fulfillment of the whole. When this point of balance is maintained between the individual parts of the whole and the whole, we can move forward effectively. But the minute the whole tries to progress at the expense of the individual parts, spiritually or vibrationally speaking, it will defeat itself. And the minute the individual human being attempts to make progress or attain fulfillment in some fashion at the expense of the whole, then that individual will defeat himself and tends to detract from the whole. Consequently, the movement forward individually and with respect to the whole must be on a balanced basis. And anything that violates that basis desecrates the shrine. Anything that violates that balance desecrates the shrine. Now, the master recognized this principle of the shrine in an outer sense when he gave the instructions which we find in the 6th chapter of Matthew. He spoke of giving alms, for instance, which is a pattern of life expression, not just giving a 50-cent donation to some charity, so-called, but alms, the doing, the living, the acting, the wholeness of what we give to others into life. The whole thing. What we give into life. And that's the seed we're sowing, whatever it is. So, to give in secret. Of course, some of our giving must be seen, known, and recognized, but the giving that we give where it can be seen must be backed up by giving which is not seen by the human being, if it is to have any meaning. If you undertake to give to be seen of men, then that is the basis of the expression. And as the master put it, they have their reward. That is, the approbation of men. If we see, however, that there must be real giving before we undertake the giving that is seen, we will begin to have a basis of understanding. If the beginning of the giving is on the basis of that which is seen, you fail, because then you are acting on a self-centered basis. If that which you give that may be seen of men is simply an expression that has a background reservoir of giving that is not seen of men, then it begins to have power. We need to begin to see that surface giving, outer giving, in the ordinary fashion of things, brings about failure and desecrates the shrine. And that desecration takes place two ways: the individual who gives and the individual who receives or tries to receive. Very often people think they are serving, undertaking to give in service, when it is not service at all. It's a desecration of the shrine pattern. On the other hand, the individual who receives on such a basis is encouraged to receive for self-centered desire, the desire to get healed, or to do something else, to get something, to have position or money. Let us remember that every teaching, whether it's unity or anything else up and down the line, that says, if you follow out these affirmations, if you do thus and so, or if you know thus and so, you can get a job, you can get a house, you can get an automobile, you can develop security, etc. I don't care what they are, what the teachings. Anyone that holds out that materialistic reward to appear as the result of following out some particular pattern of being is black magic. I don't care what kind of sheep's clothing it wears. I don't care what they claim, it's all black magic, without an exception. And we need to begin to realize that these personalized desires of personalized gain, even if it seems to work on the surface, yes, up to a certain point it will. You can demonstrate various things, you can accomplish something for the moment, but you will destroy yourself. You desecrate the shrine, you spoil the pattern for yourself and everyone else. Now, until we begin to recognize the basic principle of selflessness, so that even though we need healing, say, we do not try to get healing as such. What is the correct attitude on your part if you are in difficulty of some sort and you seek out a server? What is the correct attitude? For you to try to get well? No. Now, I've seen this pattern desecrated right here on Sunrise Ranch over and over again. Someone goes to a server and wants an attunement for what purpose? To get well or something, to clear a headache, to do this, to do the other thing, to get something. Well, now, those individuals have not realized that they've been desecrating the shrine, spoiling the pattern, reducing the amount of power that is made available by our overall program. What is the right attitude? Now, we cannot immediately change this pattern of attitude out in the world, out in the public sphere where we serve, people are going to come to us looking for help with their health. It's because they're sick that they're driven at last to seek out a server. Generally, more or less on a desperation pattern. So do we turn them away because their attitude is wrong? Oh no, we do not. We accept their response and begin to help them to come into attunement with God on a basic pattern of polarity which will allow them eventually, if they function correctly, to be healed. But if they're seeking healing, they have not yet reached a place where they have a right to contact with the shrine, with a secret place. It's on the outside. If what we do in relationship to those who respond on the only basis that human beings know or understand is backed up by our right function inside of the shrine, inside of the secret place, then we will be able to do something. But we will not invite those people inside the shrine, the secret place. Oh, into the attunement sanctuary, certainly. That's all right. But what is the shrine? Perhaps it's in your heart. Perhaps it has an outer manifestation point in your home, a little corner where you have an altar. Perhaps it could be in its immediate pattern, almost any place or anything. But that immediate or personalized shrine must be a part of an overall shrine if it is to have any meaning. It must have a center somewhere on earth. If you try to have a personalized shrine simply centered with God as a contact point, a place of contact with God, on a personal basis, without regard to the whole, you are violating laws, principles, and while it may seem to work a little bit once in a while, you will never have any real fulfillment. Why? Because you have violated the basic principle of recognizing the whole. You, as a person, you are going to contact God for blessings and benefits, or so that your service can increase, so that you can help others, and so be a blessing to the whole, you say. You think so, but it won't work that way. Any shrine that is to have meaning, insofar as the individual pattern of life is concerned, must have a relatedness to a point of centering on earth, not somewhere in heaven. For heaven is at hand anyway. Any heaven that is to have any meaning to us is on earth. But the centering of the shrine must be on earth, and the shrine must have a relationship to the whole. If it has its primary pattern of relationship to the individual as such, it won't work. Now it is possible to develop a place, say a meditation chamber or something of that nature, where people can go and they will contact something of the Spirit of God, and they will say, that was lovely, and I had a great blessing. Or some may go up in the hills or wherever the individual thinks is best, and he can have some kind of a contact, and it can be a blessing up to a point, and yet it violates the principles of the deeper shrine unless the pattern is carried out in a recognition of the central shrine of the whole. Whatever we have in a personal sense must have its relationship to the whole on the proper basis, or we violate the principles of being and defeat ourselves. In the Master's instruction on this vitally important point of the shrine, he went on from the point that is translated as alms, or the giving into life of what we do in relationship to others, to what is called prayer. And he spoke of entering into the closet and praying to the Father in secret. We need to realize then that somewhere, somehow, if we are to achieve anything, we must become members of a whole body. Our Master came on earth to establish the principles of that body. The one Christ body, we say, or the vine with many branches, etc. But those who think of themselves as branches or members of that body have scattered ideas. They have never come together with one accord at one place. We have never had an actual blending to that degree right here. We've reached high levels, yes, but never the absolute blending of being with one accord in one place right here. Sooner or later, I'm hoping, I'm trusting, in fact, I am sure, that you here will reach a point where you're willing to relinquish all of your variations of viewpoint and thought, where you're willing to just utterly and completely trust God, where you're not concerned about variations of belief and concept, where you're not concerned about divisions with respect to our own membership. I don't think too much of that person or anything else. Where you're willing to reach a point of trusting God and really coming together with one accord at one point. Sooner or later it will happen. How long will it take? That depends on you. But in any case, it's that toward which we are working. And when it happens, we will begin to have, in the deeper sense about which I am speaking tonight, a real shrine. A point where individuals have forgotten themselves in true selflessness. A point where human beings have ceased all wanting. Personal desires of every sort have been left outside. Where frictions, holding back any ill attitude whatsoever toward others has been all eliminated. There's just one thing: responding in center to God. On earth, right here. Letting it work. And then, because we have set aside all personal desires, thou shalt not want. You shall not want. Because we have set aside all personal desires for healing, for wisdom, for anything. There is a level where, moving along the way, you seek wisdom, etc., as an individual thing. But you must come to a point where you stop seeking wisdom. Come to a point where you're not wanting anything except to let the will of God be done, yield utterly to center. And at that point, letting all division cease, you finally demonstrate the reality of trust in God. Because as long as you're afraid that your beliefs will be violated, or you think somebody over there believes thus and so, and I don't agree with that, or I don't think too much of that person, I don't like the other thing, I really want this, even if you try to cover it up. I want healing, I want something or other. You maintain a separation factor. If God is a reality, and He is, why take the attitude that you need to want something that is of God? To request it, to try to get it in some fashion? That attitude is one of declaring, I am separate from God. And if you're separate from God, you're not one with God. You can't be separate from God and be one with God at the same time. If you want to be separate from God, that's your business. You have the privilege of doing it as long as you live, and what's left will certainly be separate from God. So, that's your business. But to maintain this separation, arbitrarily, when there is the opportunity to let oneness manifest, is really a desecration of the shrine. It's preventing the manifestation of the very thing you want. You may say, I'm justified in wanting this. God's will is that I should get well. Why shouldn't I want to get well? What did the Master say? Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Well, you say then, it's all right for me to want the kingdom of God, is it? Well, it's all right for you to want to find the kingdom of God as long as you are convinced that you are separate from the kingdom of God, that you don't know where it is. But you must come to a point where you don't even seek or want the kingdom of God. Why? Because you have come to realize that the Master knew what he was talking about when he said the kingdom of heaven is at hand. It's here. Well, if it's here, then why keep on wanting it? Why not let it manifest? But it won't manifest if you just sit and twiddle your thumbs, or if you maintain your personalized desires, or concepts, or beliefs, or resentments, or what have you. You'll be violating the shrine. Not until you trust God enough to say, whatever is true in me will not be violated. Whatever is true in someone else will not be violated. Whatever is not true in somebody else over there won't get in. Why should I be so careful to resist that person getting in with that idea that I don't like, that personality I don't like or something? I just don't get along well with so-and-so. Or there's friction in some degree. Maybe just a little, but it's still friction. And if it's friction, it's friction. Even if it's just a little. If you are trusting God in actual fact, you're not saying, well, I'm afraid that some false idea is going to get in. It won't. Don't you worry. It won't. For as long as that other individual maintains the pattern of separateness, he or she will not get in. That person could be right here in the room with us, and all the rest finding the centering, and that person wouldn't experience it. That person wouldn't even know what had happened. Maintaining the violations, the desecrations of the shrine, you can't share the reality of the shrine. If by the right patterns of response and letting go, we permit the generation of the pneumoplasmic substance and its centering at the point where it is supposed to be, it will be strong enough to carry the current of the Spirit of God into the realm of manifestation in relationship to ourselves. What? So that we can get something? No. So that we can share God's giving into the world. Not to get anything. The beginning steps, the first faint, feeble steps that any person takes toward the kingdom of heaven will be on the basis of getting something. Getting salvation. Getting saved, perhaps. Or getting healed. Or getting something. Well and good. It is all the people of the world know. But if we are going to serve them effectively, we ourselves must pass beyond this range of wanting, this range of trying to get, this business of being afraid that if we really let go, some pet idea will be taken away, or so-and-so will get in with some idea that I don't like, some characteristic that I don't like if I don't keep that person out. Any resentment, I don't care what it is, I don't care how justified it may seem to be, desecrates the shrine
and keeps you from entering in. And what is our recognition here? That your blessing cannot appear except by reason of the progress of the whole. If our basic purpose is not to release blessing to the whole, we will fail. If we establish any fence, here, we do not care what a person's religion is, or what it has been, or whether he's ever had any, what church he belongs to or thinks he belongs to. Makes absolutely no difference. That doesn't mean that we're going to act as if we thought that particular church had everything. It doesn't. We know that to start with. But we do not care. The man-made boundaries have no meaning to us at all. The whole of humanity. The whole of humanity is our concern, without regard to race or color or creed, overleaping all boundaries, without any exception. And so, our purpose is for the blessing of the whole. To whatever degree we can serve an individual on a basis that lets the blessing to the whole increase, we serve. But the very minute an individual starts wanting blessing on a basis that would decrease from the whole, we quit serving. We're not interested then. To serve an individual as such? No. If you try to serve individuals as such, merely because they want something, you will, sooner or later, perhaps inadvertently, but you will violate the basic principles of being, just as surely as the sun rises and sets. The whole must be our primary concern. And we will serve individuals as long as they, by reason of response or working with us, help to serve the whole. But the minute any individual begins to violate that, begins to function on a basis that disregards the whole, if we cannot draw that person into the right pattern, then we are through with that person, just like that. I don't care how much we may have loved the person, how much interested, how great an opportunity, or anything else. Then it is finished. The centering here is with respect to the whole as such.
Recognizing then the absolute necessity of selflessness, and that wanting anything is a violation of the principle, a desecration of the shrine, what is the right attitude in which to seek an attunement, for instance? A server. Not to get some particularized condition corrected, but to offer oneself as a channel of radiation in blessing to others. If there is a need in your body, and you go to a server, now this doesn't apply out there in the world. We can't expect everyone to understand it all at once. But we need to know it, and we need to function on the right basis here. If you go to a server for an attunement in order to clear a headache or anything else, then you're wrong. But if you go to a server and ask for an attunement in the attitude of offering yourself as a channel for the radiation of blessings to the world, you're not trying to get something. You are entering into a spirit of sharing with your server in his or her giving. Then you're not violating the principle. If you're trying to get, you are.
If you are sharing givingness, you are not. What is the server's position? To share God's givingness. And if you're not sharing God's givingness, you're not a server. Well then, if those of us who are here seek an attunement or go to a server, what is our attitude? To get something? If it is wrong, you are desecrating the shrine, violating the principle. If, however, you go to a server seeking an attunement, for what purpose? To share that server's giving into the world. If the headache clears, that's incidental. If you get better, that's incidental. If you are wanting, you are wrong. Now, it seems to take a long time for the human mind to begin to grasp the fundamental, simple fact that as long as you want something, you prevent its manifestation. Because people long for something so desperately, it just never appears properly. They finally begin to relax and let go, and if they stay centered, something begins to work out. But while that was so desperately wanted, well, they may jam something through and think they're going to get it. But it won't carry the blessing. It won't be real. It won't last. Until this selflessness becomes a constant reality in us, each and every one, we cannot possibly begin to be in a real position to serve humanity. More and more there's a pattern of response. People are beginning to discover that there is a Sunrise Ranch, and that there are servers in various parts of the United States and Canada. But we are not ready yet for that big influx that is tending to appear. The vibrational patterns are shaping, but we do not yet have the shrine properly established on a completely selfless basis. And remember, that Spirit of God is not going to just come into manifestation. Suppose 1,000 people drove into our valley tomorrow morning seeking to find, well, they're going to come to get, yes. But that's the starting point for them. Are we going to be in position to serve them? Would we by tomorrow morning? I doubt it. Very definitely, I doubt it. Why? Because this point has not cleared through with us. Right here. Wanting something. Wanting something that you consider to be legitimate. Right. And it's God's will that you be well or something? Oh, yes, but you mustn't want it. Because it throws you into a self-centered pattern, violates your relationship to the whole of mankind and to God. What happens? The Spirit of God is there, given to all alike, to the just and the unjust. But the unjust don't receive it. Why? Because the vibrational factors in whatever pneumoplasmic substance they have is not right. The pattern isn't right. But here, we are working through a process of generating the pneumoplasm and letting it be established on the right pattern. Those of you who serve in the field all know that there has been tremendous support and blessing from right here. But that still doesn't mean we have reached the point of bringing it to focus the way it should be, the way it must be, if we're going to move into the larger sphere of service and have the greater manifestation of power. Because all of these little frictions, all of these little holding processes of holding back, don't quite like that person. Resentment here, reaction there, condemnation, judgment. Oh, what are you doing? You are holding back the development of our whole program. Even if it's just for a moment, you are spoiling it and preventing the manifestation of the only thing which will allow it to work out to the end that these things that you don't like can be corrected. It comes down to one simple question. Do you trust God? If you do not have to be defending yourself, your own pet ideas. You don't have to carry an attitude of, I won't do this, I'll go so far, I'll accept the other and reject this, I don't quite like so-and-so, I don't get along over here. All of the things that you want to change around. You want to change around? Suppose I made that approach. From an inner standpoint, I'm looking forward to increasing manifestations of change in you. Yes. But if I started out on the basis, well, now I want to change you, I'm just going to change you all over the place. Do you think we'd have such a lovely group of people here tonight? I don't. People with quality, character, ability. Why did you come so far? Why are you here? Because there is an opportunity for you to share this thing that I'm talking about. And unless we do share it in our togetherness, we will not have the proper shrine, the proper point of centering in an outer sense, which is so necessary. What are we concerned about? The kingdom of heaven is at hand. It's right here. We don't have to go somewhere else. We don't have to go up somewhere else. It's here. And whatever is right is going to get in, and whatever isn't right isn't going to get in. Why do you have to be concerned about your neighbor, somebody else, what somebody does or does not do, thinks or does not think, and all the rest of it? How much do you trust me? How much do you trust God? These petty, puny human concepts and things that you want? $1 million. I could use $1 million in the Lord's service beautifully. We've got a $1,000 payment coming up next month on the Gateway property, and I don't have the $1,000. And there'll be about $500 in interest. I don't have the interest. Many things that we could say, well, I want. Well, those things will be provided as soon as we begin to function correctly. But if we started trying to get such things in an ordinary fashion, wanting it, trying to make it appear in some way, we would violate the whole thing. It won't work that way. We need to begin to realize that until we come to a point of selflessness and stop wanting, why should we want? If God is our God, if our King is a reality and the kingdom is here, and it's right here on earth at hand, and we have found it, the simple fact is it hasn't come into full manifestation, no. But do we believe that it's here or don't we? If it is here, at hand, as the Master said, then it is. The rest is a matter of letting it come into form. And how are we going to do that? By our pushings, our pullings, our resentments and rebellions, trying to make it be thus and so, wanting this and that. So legitimate to want something. So legitimate to try to make something manifest, to demonstrate it in some fashion. Oh, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. It's a violation of the principles of being. I know there are many who try that, and within a certain range they get this and that. But there's a ceiling beyond which they cannot go, and they fail. Absolutely. Now then, this shrine, any shrine, has meaning because the people involved provide enough pneumoplasm to allow a contact point for the Spirit of God at that point in relationship to the ideas involved. And it will work for the unjust too. But the point is they won't get very much power. It doesn't manifest very great power. Why? Because the contact pattern is not right. They get it up to a point, and it never goes beyond that. Why? Because the human beings involved spoil the pattern in the pneumoplasmic substance with their own attitudes, just as has been done right here on Sunrise Ranch. Little resentments, not big ones, just teensy-weensy little ones. They surely won't hurt anything, but they do. Teensy-weensy little rebellions. Oh, we've been making a lot of progress. We're doing a lot better than, oh, it's wonderful. But, oh, these tiny little ones. Oh, but they do spoil it. A friction pattern. You don't quite like the way somebody else speaks or does or something. And you're justified because they certainly didn't do that right. And you spoil the pattern in the pneumoplasm. It's a delicate thing, that. And unless our spirit is right in true centering, true trust, true selflessness, the pneumoplasmic contact with the Spirit is being clouded and distorted and spoiled. Oh, we have a manifestation of power here that we've seen wonderful things already. But it isn't nearly enough, and you know it. The real manifestation of power. And it cannot come until there is that selfless centering. The meeting point between spirit and pneumoplasm. That isn't all. Then the individual relationship to the pneumoplasmic pattern through which the spirit is working. But that's another step. Some people sort of accidentally run into it. Other people try so hard and never make it. But there is the point. The pneumoplasmic contact with spirit. And it has to be at the point of some shrine somewhere. And if you're going to have a personalized shrine, an individual one, you should, it's all right. If you work within the law. But it has to be centered with respect to the whole. For the instant you start functioning on the basis of yourself as a person or someone else as a person, without regard to the whole, you violate the principles and spoil the result. Here, we are servers. Everyone in this room is supposed to be dedicated to serving God. Yet, how can we best serve God? By letting this pattern come to focus so that there's an absolutely clear, pure point of contact between spirit and pneumoplasm. Blessed ones, if I didn't maintain such a contact in relationship to myself for you and for the whole, do you think I could do what you see me do? In services, class lectures? Not one of you has ever seen me use a note. And yet, look at the patterns, the continuity, the cycle of outworking through the class as you've been listening to on recording, for instance. You don't see me using any notes tonight. Why these things? If I didn't maintain that on a basis which I refuse to let you violate, I couldn't serve you as I do. I wouldn't have the ability. No. Over and over again, some of you have tried to violate that point that I work through, but you've never been able to do it. You don't really want to, but you've tried hard enough, some of you. So, if I didn't maintain the reality of that in a personal sense for you and for the whole, we wouldn't have anything. But what am I inviting you to do? I'm inviting you as a unit, and as members of a unit, to share that. It's already here. It's established. It's an accomplished fact, or we couldn't have accomplished what has been done. I'm inviting you to share it. What is giving? Do we, in the true sense, give? We talk about God's giving. In the deeper sense, what happens? We offer to share. Not to condescendingly give. No. We are offering to share. That is true giving. And there must be something in order to share it. Unless we can cause something to manifest, we're not in position to share it with someone else. You've seen the evidence that I do have something to share. When you accept the privilege of sharing it, we will have this state for the unit, for most all the members who will share it at least, whether it's 10% of you or 50% or 90% or 100%. When you share it, we have what? The state of being brought to focus, together, brought to point, with one accord in one place. That's our shrine point in relationship to the whole. To get something? No. No, no. To have a point of centering for all the holy shrines on earth. But suppose our blessing should manifest for a Mohammedan in Mecca. Well, that's quite all right with me. Suppose a Roman Catholic should be blessed somewhere, or even a Baptist. It's quite all right with me. I don't care how many get blessings. That's fine and dandy. The more, the better. If they violate the principles, they'll destroy themselves. The principle is, we must have something to share. Now, you've been sharing it to some degree, but it is not enough. You know that both from the standpoint of our personnel here and from you who have come in, servers from out in the field, you who are students here. We were working toward this point in our classwork and in relationship to the personnel here before this convention started. We got so far, but we didn't get far enough. And you all know it. Now, you are here from out in the field, and from all the places, the north and the south and the east and the west, from whence you came. Are we going to let this thing carry through to point? Or at least some of you, if you can't all reach the point of selflessness and willingness to really trust God and let it center? How about some of you doing it? That would be nice. I'd like to see every one of you do it. But perhaps that is asking too much. Some of you just couldn't really let go yet. All right. Let them alone. How about you doing it? If your neighbor won't, or isn't ready, or refuses somehow, how about you doing it? And we can have the centering shrine for the face of the whole earth. We can have the central control shrine in relationship to every shrine upon the face of the earth. I don't care where, what religion. That could begin to mean something.
all of these other religions and philosophies, they don't know how to go anywhere near the point I'm talking about. They have their ceiling. Under that ceiling there are some blessings. Some wonderful blessings. Thank God for that. The world would be a lot worse than it is if it weren't for that fact. But to me, there's no difference between a Baptist, a Roman Catholic, and a Mohammedan. Actually, it makes utterly no difference to me. One is not one whit better than the other, so-called Christian or so-called non-Christian. It makes absolutely no difference to me. One is not one whit better than another. And the blessings can appear wherever. Now, it's so simple, and yet it's too simple for most human minds to grasp. And they're bound and determined to have their own pet ideas, their own concepts, their own beliefs, their own resentments, their own rejections. How can you reject and receive? If you are wanting something, you are saying, I am separate from God. If you are rejecting someone over here, you're saying, I don't believe in the power of God. I might get hurt unless I keep up my defenses. Might you? Well, it depends on you. Suppose someone else isn't doing it right. Suppose there is seemingly just cause for a little resentment or a little rebellion or something else. What difference does it make? That is not helping anyone anywhere unless it is to violate the laws of God. Unless we begin to realize right here that we need a central shrine. I have a shrine. I have enfolded you in the cloud of glory which emanates from that shrine over and over again. I've enfolded you in it, let you rest in its blessings in various ways. But you can't violate it. You can violate your relationship to what is offered to you, but you can't violate it. There's a secret place. Not secret because I want to keep it that way, but because only certain things can come into it. Nothing else. When you let that be true of you, you will find something remarkable happening. Something wonderful. But any one of you or all of you put together couldn't violate that shrine. You can violate the principles of it and prevent its manifestation in relationship to yourself. But we need to have that shrine, that centering shrine for the whole world right here. We can. Very easily. Because they don't know how to do it in India. They don't know how to do it in China or Tibet or any other place. And we can do it if we will let it be so. We can do it. If we will let it come to center. And if you really trust God, what do all these seeming differences mean? They're not worth it. Why delay the day of our fulfillment? The day of our greater service? The day of our greater joy? The day of the greater blessing released into the world?
when you can truly share that shrine and keep it sacred, never desecrate it, you'll begin to find the manifestation of power such as you never dreamed of, the expression of things divine through you into the world in service to all who will receive. And it's open to you and to everyone, everywhere, who will receive it. But the conditions are absolute. Absolute. I couldn't change them if I would, but I wouldn't if I could. The conditions are absolute, like it or not. What you think about it is beside the point. It's that way. God established it that way, and if we are wise, we'll accept it the way it is and let it be. And we can experience and share that greater outpouring of the Holy Spirit. So soon, some of you are going to have to be going back out in the field to your places of service. So very soon. And one of the deep yearnings of my heart for you is that we should share this thing before you must journey back into the field. That we may have the shrine a reality. That you should share it and let its power have meaning on earth, to keep it sacred always, never desecrate it. For you will find that wherever you are, if you are working out of the reservoir of the secret place, what you do that can be seen of men is always backed up by something that cannot be seen of men. Yes, I come before you and talk to you. But if there wasn't something back of that that cannot be seen of men, do you think we would accomplish much? I don't. The human mind gets so involved in what can be seen out here, to be seen of men, in action, in words, etc., trying to do it so other people will see and be influenced. Oh, we have to do things that others can see. That's all right. But that is incidental. That is the result of something else. And until that shrine pattern, that secret place in you is held absolutely sacred by you, you cannot have the increasing manifestation of power, the power of God on earth. How was it the Master put it? And ye shall receive power. After that the Holy Spirit is come upon you. And that's right. And ye shall receive power. Power. Thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory. Where's that power coming from? It's coming from within the kingdom, and the kingdom is here. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. And Spirit must come through to us through the pneumoplasm and through our relationship physically, mentally, emotionally to that. And then it works. Spoil that delicate contact and it won't work. The Spirit is there, but it will have no meaning to you. You may think that it does. You may use something of the current of life in distortion patterns and imagine that you're doing great things, but it will come to naught. There is only one way. the way of our King. And the laws of the kingdom are absolute. And you are among those to whom the invitation is extended. Come unto me. Come unto the King in his kingdom here on earth that is at hand. And let it work. Let us have that shrine, that secret place. And if we see something of how the power is manifest to the degree that it has in the various shrines scattered around the world, we can see how we can have a shrine that has meaning not just for us, but for every man, woman, and child on the face of the earth who will receive and let that blessing appear. Let us let the will of God be done on earth as it is in heaven. So shall you know the outpouring of the Holy Spirit. It's so simple, so easy, and we could have it. We wouldn't have to wait more than, let's see, not more than 48 hours. Might not have to wait that long. It's at hand, it's here. But there is no way but this, to come together with one accord in one place under our King. So let it be. Our gracious Lord, we thank Thee that it is so, and that the outpouring of the evidence of Thy presence through us reaches forth in blessing to all who will receive, of every race and kindred and tongue and people, that all Thy children everywhere may be uplifted and blessed, and drawn with the irresistible cords of Thy love to stand upon the rock eternal. And we thank Thee for the privilege of sharing in the coming of Thy kingdom and the working of Thy will on earth as it is in heaven. For Thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever.